trade relations under James Madison. In the 1808 election, James Madison of the Democratic Republican Party easily defeated C.C. Pinckney. So after Jefferson's 2 terms, James Madison became president. Madison continued Jefferson's policy of peaceful coercion. With respect to France and Britain. But the lack of an organized American military made it difficult for him to get the attention of these major powers. So instead of trying to go straight forward and fight with France or Britain, Jefferson and then Madison had tried to maintain this policy of peaceful coercion. They would peacefully try to get France and Britain to do what the United States wanted them to do. But without the Americans having an organized military, France and Britain didn't really see the United States as a threat and weren't as likely to follow along with this peaceful coercion. In 1809, Madison convinced Congress to pass the Non-Intercourse Act of 1809. Which forbade trade with France and Britain until they began treating American business fairly. So Madison had tried to peacefully coerce them in other ways. At this point, he said, okay, we just won't trade with France or Britain if they can't treat American business fairly. He tried to say, we just won't trade with them at all. And this was another way to peacefully, without any kind of fighting, coerce France and Britain into giving them more fairer trade relations, fairer trade agreements. When British Ambassador David Erskine vowed to improve the treatment of American businesses, Madison agreed to trade with Britain. So, British Ambassador David Erskine said, okay, James Madison, we promise we will improve relations with America in regards to trade. We will treat your businesses more fairly. So, Madison agreed to trade with Britain. However, Erskine's superior quickly overruled him, making Madison look ridiculous and souring Anglo-American relations further. Anglo referring to British people, American referring to United States citizens. So the relationship between England and America became even worse at this point because now Madison had said, we're not going to trade with you. The British ambassador had said, we'll make things better. So Madison said, all right, we will trade with you again. And then the British ambassador's superior said, actually, everything he said isn't true. We're not going to make relations better. So Madison had to go back again. So he's flip-flopping here, making him look ridiculous. And so this made relations with Britain even worse at this point. In 1810, Madison replaced the Non-Intercourse Act of 1809 with Macon's Bill No. 2. So the Non-Intercourse Act wasn't really working as well as Madison had hoped, so he replaced it with Macon's Bill No. 2, which declared America would be open to trade with any country. The bill also stipulated that if either France or Britain agreed to neutral trading rights with the United States would immediately cease trade with the other. So now, Madison's saying, okay, fine, we'll trade with everyone again. But if France or Britain gives me a better deal, if France or Britain says, okay, we'll have neutral trade agreements with you now, then the United States would stop trading with the other country. So the United States at this point would be open to trade with anyone, even if it's not on the best of terms. But if Britain gives the United States neutral trading rights, then America will stop trading with France. If France gives America neutral trading rights, then America will stop trading with Britain. So France jumped at this opportunity, and the United States cut ties with Britain. So Madison followed through on what Macon's Bill No. 2 stipulated would happen. When France agreed to neutral trading rights with the United States cut ties with Britain. The British were weakened by the American embargoes and by a bitter winter. So they had both this trading agreement, the economy playing against them, and a bitter winter that year playing against them. So the British rescinded the orders in council, although the U.S. had already declared war upon them. So Britain at this point was pushed to the limit. They said, okay, fine, we'll give America the better trading rights they wanted, but by this point it was too late. The United States had already declared war on them, and they weren't going back on that. After the British Prime Minister was assassinated, the new Foreign Secretary, Castlereagh, tried to mend relations, but the United States went to war anyway. So by this point, war was pretty much inevitable. The United States had had enough of Britain. There were still some animosities from the Revolutionary War. There were some things that had never quite been cleared up. The British were still backing Native American tribes who were fighting against the United States. The British would still capture American ships and force American soldiers into the Royal Navy. The British still occupied lands in the Canadian region and more of the Northwest region. They occupied some of those lands and claimed those lands as their own, and the United States was maybe interested in acquiring some of that. So there were a lot of unhappy things going on between the United States and Britain, not to mention the trade relations that had been so steadily deteriorating. So trade relations under Madison weren't that great. They started off fairly peaceful, with Madison following Jefferson's policy of peaceful coercion, but with the Non-Intercourse Act of 1809, followed by Macon's Bill No. 2, trade relations really weren't evening out very well, and eventually the trade relations with Britain were enough to be the needle that, or the straw that broke the camel's back and pushed the United States into the War of 1812 with Britain.
To find out more about how to ace your test and get more practice for your test, click the study guide. Learn why Mometrix is the best and smartest decision you could make for your test prep choice. We have done all the work cutting through the fluff to give you what you need to perform well on your exam. Click the study guide to get started now. And thank you for watching and learning with us.